If you think of the Sahara Desert as just this, never-ending, boring sandbox, prepare to reconsider basically everything you know about the map of the Earth.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we instinctively look at a desert and just assume it's a dead zone, right?
Right.
Just this static, unchanging wasteland. But the reality beneath the surface is it's incredibly dynamic and violent, right? And frankly, it's cinematic.
Yeah, cinematic is the perfect word for it. Welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. We are jumping straight into a totally fascinating YouTube video transcript titled The Unbelievable World Beneath the Sands of the Sahara.
It's such a great source text.
It really is. And our mission for this deep dive is to explore how this colossal desert, a desert so vast it could swallow the entire United States whole, acts as this giant planetary safe.
Yeah, a safe, but also like a massive delete key for human history.
Exactly. A massive delete key. We're going to peel back the sand to uncover ancient spaceports, walking whales, and lost empires.
It sounds like sci-fi, but it's all geology and archaeology.
Right. And ultimately, we want to show you why understanding the Sahara's chaotic past is the absolute key to grasping just how fragile our own civilization really is.
What really stands out to me throughout this material isn't just the bizarre nature of the discoveries themselves.
Sure.
It's what they teach us about the myth of geographical stability.
Mhm.
Because we all tend to look at a globe and think, well, the continents and climates, they're just fixed, permanent features.
We take the ground beneath our feet for granted.
We really do. But the Sahara completely shatters that comfort. It teaches us that the map is always, always in transition.
And to prove just how wild that transition can be, let's start with a mystery so colossal you literally cannot even see it from the ground.
Right, you have to be in orbit.
Exactly. So we have to go back to 1965. NASA's Gemini 4 astronauts are drifting over the African continent in low Earth orbit. And, part of their mission includes hunting for geological anomalies.
Looking for impact craters, mostly.
Yeah. So they look out the small windows of their capsule over Mauritania and they see this massive, unblinking eye staring back at them from a totally flat, lifeless plateau.
The Richat Structure.
The Richat Structure. It is this astonishingly perfect set of concentric circles. I'm talking 40 kilometers wide, just etched right into the crust of the Earth.
And the funny thing is, for centuries, camel caravans had trekked directly across these rings.
Right, and they had no idea.
No idea at all. They just assumed they were ordinary, jagged hills. You simply can't perceive the geometry when you're standing right on top of it.
But from orbit, the precision looks almost artificial. And when these satellite images eventually reached the public, the internet obviously exploded. People started claiming, we found it. We have found Atlantis.
The Atlantis theory. It always comes back to Atlantis.
It always does. But okay, let's unpack this for a second. Because if you read Plato's dialogues, the Greek philosopher described the capital of Atlantis as being composed of 3 rings of water and 2 rings of land. You look at the satellite imagery of the Richat Structure, and the visual match is just uncanny.
I'll admit, the alignment fuels a very seductive narrative.
And it gets even more specific than that. Plato noted that to the north of the city lay great mountains, and to the south sat a vast, sprawling plain.
And the Richat Structure matches that topography perfectly.
Exactly. Even the diameter Plato provided in ancient units converts almost exactly to the 40-kilometer width of this eye. So I have to ask, are we looking at a lost civilization? Is the Sahara storing the ruins of a mythical metropolis?
It's a fantastic story. It really is. But this is where the mechanics of mainstream geology offer a reality check. And honestly, the reality is, in its own way, just as fascinating.
So no Atlantis.
No Atlantis. The eye isn't a ruined city.
Hmm.
It is what geologists affectionately refer to as a geological pimple.
Okay, a geological pimple doesn't quite have the majesty of Atlantis. I'm just going to say it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But the physics behind it are incredible. You have to imagine this giant bubble of magma rising from deep within the Earth's mantle millions of years ago.
Like a lava lamp.
Exactly like a lava lamp. It pushes upward, straining against the surface crust, bulging those layers of sedimentary rock into a massive dome.
So it's trying to erupt.
Right, but it never actually breaches the surface to become a volcano. It just creates this massive blister. And then over time, the magma cools and solidifies underground.
Okay, I can picture a dome, but a dome doesn't explain perfectly symmetrical, flat rings. I mean, it seems like something had to carve those circles from the top down.
Well, that is exactly what happened. And the carvers were wind and water.
Really? Just wind and water?
Yep. Over hundreds of millions of years, the elements acted like a colossal belt sander. They just ground away at the top of this dome, layer by layer.
Yeah.
The key mechanism here is differential erosion. Because the dome was made of different types of rock layered on top of each other, they wore down at different speeds.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so the harder rocks, like quartzite, they resisted the wind and rain. They remained intact as these raised circular ridges. Meanwhile, the softer sedimentary rocks eroded much faster, hollowing out into those circular valleys.
So it's essentially a mechanical trick of nature that slices the top off a sphere.
Exactly, leaving us with a literal cross-section of the Earth's deep crust.
Okay, fine. I can accept the chaotic architecture of nature for the geology. But if the physical landscape is natural, that doesn't account for the human element we find elsewhere in the desert.
Ah, I know where you're going with this.
Right, because how do you explain high-definition cave paintings of ancient astronauts and lush, roaring rivers in a place that has been bone dry for 5,000 years?
You're taking us to Tasselina Jager.
Deep in the heart of the Algerian desert. If you haven't seen pictures of this place, it is a stone forest of deeply eroded sandstone pillars and canyons. It honestly looks like a landing site on Mars.
It's a brutal environment today.
Absolutely brutal. But back in 1933, a French lieutenant named Brennans was patrolling this absolute hellscape on Camelback. He ducks into a narrow canyon just to escape the lethal midday sun, looks up, and the rock walls are entirely covered in tens of thousands of detailed, colored frescoes.
And this isn't just, primitive scratching.
No, not at all. He is looking at a vibrant aquatic ecosystem. There are athletic hunters chasing giraffes, elephants, and hippos.
Which tells us immediately that this environment used to support massive amounts of fresh water.
Ah.
I mean, hippos do not survive in arid climates. They need deep water.
Right. And most shockingly, there are paintings of massive reed boats filled with people navigating those deep waters.
In the middle of the Sahara.
Yes. And then the art shifts from the natural to the deeply supernatural. Researchers in the 1950s documented these ghostly 6-meter-tall figures.
The Roundheads.
Yeah, the Roundheads. They're wearing suits that look eerily like modern space gear, complete with antenna and featureless helmets.
It's very evocative.
It is. The most famous figure, the great god Sifar, is so hauntingly alien that an entire subculture firmly believes this was a prehistoric spaceport where extraterrestrials landed before the climate collapsed.
I mean, the ancient alien theory is a fun thought experiment, but the reality involves a mechanism called the cosmic pendulum.
The cosmic pendulum.
Yeah, it comes down to orbital mechanics, specifically axial precession.
That's the Earth wobbling on its axis, right?
Yes, exactly. But let's look at how that wobble actually re-engineers the climate. The Earth doesn't spin perfectly smoothly at its 23.5 degree tilt. It wobbles like a slowing toy top.
Okay.
It traces a slow circle in the sky over a 26,000-year cycle. And this changes when the northern hemisphere gets its most direct, intense sunlight.
So the heating pattern shifts.
Right. When the tilt maximizes that solar radiation, the landmass of North Africa heats up dramatically.
Yeah.
Hot air rises, creating a massive low-pressure system. And that system acts like a vacuum, literally dragging the Atlantic monsoon rain belt hundreds of miles north.
Wait, so the heavy rains that usually fall in the Congo were being pulled all the way up into the Sahara.
Exactly. Just 5,000 to 10,000 years ago, this mechanism completely transformed the Sahara into what we call a green Eden.
A green Eden?
Yeah, it was a vast savanna, very much like the modern-day Serengeti. It even featured Lake Megachad, which was a body of fresh water larger than the Caspian Sea.
That is just, it's hard to even wrap your mind around.
It is. So those cave paintings, the art wasn't showing aliens. It was likely showing shamanic rituals or masked hunters living in a thriving, watery paradise.
But the pendulum always swings back.
It does. It always does. About 5,000 years ago, the orbital wobble shifted the sunlight again. The monsoon belt dropped back south.
And the rains just stopped.
Right. And the terrifying part is that the climate didn't just slowly degrade over millennia. It collapsed with brutal speed.
Like how fast?
Within just a few centuries, the rain stopped, the vegetation died, and those massive lakes evaporated, leaving behind oceans of salt and ash.
Wow. I want you to put yourself in the shoes of the people living there at the time. Imagine your lush, green hometown, literally the only paradise your ancestors have ever known, turning into an uninhabitable furnace in a matter of a few generations.
It was a profound climate trauma. The refugees had to flee eastward to the only reliable, permanent water source left in the region.
The Nile River.
The Nile.
Yeah.
This leads to a brilliant insight from historians. It is highly, highly likely that ancient Egyptian civilization, with its intense obsession with preserving life and defying death, was born directly from these climate refugees.
That shifts the whole perspective on Egypt for me. The Nile wasn't just a river to them. It was a miraculous survivor in a world that had literally turned to dust.
Yes. Think about their language. The Egyptians called the desert Dishrep, the red land of chaos and death. And the Nile Valley was Kemet, the black land of life.
Wow.
Their entire mythology of order versus chaos was likely forged by the ancestral memory of the Green Sahara dying all around them.
So the Sahara basically deletes the surface history, but if you dig even deeper than the ancient humans of that green Eden, the desert reveals a completely different, almost alien epoch.
But we're going way back now.
Way back to a time when the scorching sandbox was actually the bottom of the sea.
Right. To understand this, we really have to look at the fossil record, which, surprisingly, the desert preserves beautifully.
Okay, so we're taking you 150 kilometers east of Cairo to Wadi al-Hitan, also known as the Valley of Whales.
That's a great name.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
But picture this. You are hiking through a literal furnace. The temperature is screaming at 45 degrees Celsius. There is zero water for miles. But as you climb a sand dune, you spot a smooth gray object.
You brush away the sand, probably expecting a rock.
Exactly. But you find a vertebra the size of a tree log, you keep digging, and this massive 18-meter-long skull with jagged, bone-crushing teeth emerges.
It's terrifying.
It is. For centuries, the local Bedouins actually believed these were the petrified remains of monsters that were cursed by the gods. Early religious scholars even pointed to them as physical proof of the Great Flood.
Which makes total sense if you don't know the geological history.
Yeah.
But the anatomy of these fossils tells a much more complex evolutionary story.
And that's the part that completely short-circuits your brain. Because when scientists clean the sand from the bones, they find hind legs.
Yep. legs.
These marine apex predators have small but fully formed legs with knees, ankles, and toes. I mean, why on earth would a whale need legs?
Because you aren't looking at a whale as we know it today, you are looking at Basilosaurus.
Basilosaurus.
Right. It was an 18-meter-long, high-speed predator with a snake-like body that ruled the Eocene epoch 40 million years ago.
And the legs.
Those small legs are the evolutionary missing link. They are the mechanical proof that whales evolved from land-dwelling mammals.
Wait, land mammals?
Yeah. Creatures resembling modern wolves or maybe tiny deer. They slowly adapted to hunt in the shallows and eventually returned entirely to the sea.
So it's a land mammal that evolved in reverse into a sea monster. That is wild. But what were they swimming in over Egypt? Because it's a desert now.
They were swimming in the Tethys Ocean. 40 million years ago, the landmass of North Africa was completely submerged under this massive, shallow tropical sea.
So it wasn't just a lake, it was a vibrant ocean.
It was a thriving ecosystem. It was filled with mangroves, coral reefs, and warm lagoons where the Basilosaurus came to breed and hunt.
And then what happened?
The tectonic plates eventually shifted. They pushed the landmass up and closed off the ocean, draining the water away.
Just slowly draining a whole ocean.
Exactly. So when you walk through Wadi Alitan today, beneath your boots, you are literally crushing perfectly preserved, fossilized coral and mangrove roots.
Okay, so we've explored these incredibly slow, deep time changes, right? The gradual orbital wobble, the slow tectonic draining of an ocean. But the Sahara isn't just a record of slow transitions.
No, not at all.
It also holds evidence of catastrophic sudden violence. And for this, we have to look at Howard Carter's famous 1922 discovery of King Tutankhamun's tomb.
Oh, the scarab pendant?
Yes. Amidst all the gold and lapis lazuli, Carter found this incredible pectoral pendant. And right in the center is a yellow-green scarab beetle. For decades, researchers just assumed it was a piece of carved quartz.
But modern chemical analysis proved it was something far rarer. It's Libyan desert glass.
Which is, what is that exactly?
It is the purest, most translucent silica glass found anywhere in nature.
And creating this glass requires a terrifying amount of energy. I mean, to fuse ordinary Saharan sand into glass this pure, you need to expose it to temperatures nearing 2,000 degrees Celsius.
Right.
That is twice the heat of flowing volcanic lava. You essentially have to turn a massive stretch of desert into a sea of liquid fire in a fraction of a second.
Which is why ancient astronaut theorists immediately jumped on this to suggest prehistoric nuclear wars.
Of course they did.
While the actual geologists immediately started searching for a massive meteorite crater. Because the logic makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
If a rock from space strikes the Earth with enough kinetic energy to melt the desert, there should be a massive impact crater.
But they didn't find one.
No. They mapped every single inch of the region and found absolutely nothing. The sand just melted in place.
So how do you get the heat without the impact crater?
Supercomputer simulations finally unraveled the physics of it. About 29 million years ago, a monstrous asteroid hurtled into Earth's atmosphere right over the Sahara.
Okay.
But the atmosphere acts like a physical brick wall when you hit it at cosmic speeds. The asteroid compressed the air in front of it so violently and so rapidly that the air itself ignited.
Wow.
The intense friction and pressure caused the asteroid to explode in midair a few kilometers above the ground.
An airburst.
A catastrophic airburst. The kinetic energy instantly converted into thermal radiation. The explosion created a fireball, essentially a second sun in the sky that was exponentially more powerful than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima.
The heat transfer is what really gets me here.
Mm.
Because the physical shockwave hadn't even reached the ground yet, right?
The shockwave is slower.
But the thermal radiation, traveling at the speed of light, hit the dunes like a hammer. It instantly melted the surface of the desert into glowing rivers of liquid glass.
The dunes flash melted, and then they rapidly cooled and shattered into those beautiful lemon yellow shards.
And then, millions of years later, King Tut's craftsmen find a piece of this glass in the sand. They likely believe it's a crystallized piece of the sun god Ra, and they carve it into a scarab.
They were quite literally adorning their pharaoh with the captured thermal flash of a dying star.
That is unbelievable. It perfectly illustrates the sheer scale of energy the planet is subjected to.
Absolutely.
We've seen how the Earth can arbitrarily wipe the slate clean, whether through orbital climate shifts or asteroid airbursts. But the story of the Sahara isn't just about passive victims of nature. What happens when humans decide to actively fight back against the encroaching desert?
Well, for a long time, historians looked at the map of the Central Sahara and assumed no complex civilization could ever survive there once the lakes dried up.
It was just a blank space.
Right. They considered it too hostile for anything but small nomadic tribes.
Until 2011, when satellite imagery, utilizing ground-penetrating radar, pierced the sand dunes in southern Libya. The images revealed these sharp geometric contours hidden just beneath the surface. Massive foundations, straight lines, urban grids.
They had found the ruins of over 100 fortified settlements belonging to the Garamantes Empire.
The Garamantes. The ancient Romans had dismissed them as just scattered wild barbarians.
The Romans were a bit biased.
A bit, yeah. Because the archaeological reality was a highly organized technological powerhouse. They had a written language, advanced metallurgy, chariots, and these sprawling cities with two-story houses and paved streets.
And this was thriving while much of Europe was still in the Dark Ages.
Exactly. But the central mystery, of course, is the water. They built an agricultural empire in a landscape with virtually zero rainfall, thousands of kilometers from the nearest river. It's the equivalent of building a booming agricultural metropolis on the surface of the moon.
It really is.
So how did they keep millions of people and vast crops of wheat, grapes, and figs alive?
They engineered an astonishing survival mechanism known as the Fagara system.
Fargara.
Yes. Instead of relying on surface water, they tapped into the deep earth. They hand-carved thousands of kilometers of underground tunnels through solid rock.
Thousands of kilometers by hand.
By hand. Think of it as a subterranean cardiovascular system for the desert.
But the mechanics of building that are just staggering. I mean, no lasers, no modern surveying equipment, no heavy machinery.
It required an unbelievable mobilization of labor, almost certainly relying heavily on enslaved people, unfortunately. They would dig vertical shafts down to the water table at the base of the hills, sometimes dozens of meters deep. Then they would dig horizontal tunnels at a very precise, slight downward gradient. This utilized gravity to gently pull the hidden aquifer water miles across the desert directly into their valleys.
That's genius. And by keeping the water underground, they eliminated evaporation from the scorching sun.
Exactly. It's a masterclass in ancient engineering. But it contained a fatal flaw. They built an empire on a trap.
A trap.
A devastating environmental trap. The water they were tapping into wasn't tied to an active rain cycle. It was fossil water.
Ah, so it wasn't replenishing.
No, it was a finite, non-renewable resource that had seeped into the bedrock thousands of years earlier during the Green Sahara period.
So they were essentially living on an environmental credit card.
Precisely. They were the drawing from an ancient bank account that had zero deposits coming in. As the Garamantes Empire expanded, their agricultural demands obviously grew. The water table naturally began to drop.
So they had to keep digging.
Right. To compensate, they had to dig deeper vertical shafts and longer horizontal tunnels. The maintenance became an impossible burden.
Oh.
Eventually, the fossil water simply ran out. The entire foundation of their civilization evaporated, the empire collapsed almost overnight, and the shifting sands moved in to bury their cities.
The desert always collects its debts. And honestly, the modern parallel here is genuinely chilling. We look at the Garamontes as ancient history, but we are currently executing the exact same playbook, just with diesel engines instead of hand tools.
Oh, absolutely. In the mid-20th century, geologists drilling for oil in the Sahara struck something vastly more critical for survival. They found the Nubian sandstone aquifer system.
Which is huge, right?
It is a subterranean ocean of fossil water trapped beneath the rock. The scale is difficult to even comprehend. It contains roughly 2.5 million cubic kilometers of pristine, ice-cold water.
2.5 million.
Yes. That is enough volume to submerge Germany, France, and Spain entirely.
Wow. And countries like Libya immediately tapped into it, initiating the Great Man-Made River Project. They laid thousands of miles of massive concrete pipes to pump this ancient trapped water from the deep desert all the way up to the coastal cities to artificially turn the landscape green.
Right.
So as we speak, we are drinking an Eocene cocktail from a bottle that will never refill.
It is the ultimate illusion of mastery over nature. We use immense technological power to pull fossil water to the surface, creating this artificial abundance. But whether the aquifer runs dry in 100 years or 500 years, it is mathematically guaranteed to run out.
It has to.
We are living on borrowed time, mirroring the exact hubris of the Garamontes.
It really puts everything into perspective. When we synthesize this entire deep dive, the journey through the source material is astounding. We started with the orbital illusion of Atlantis at the Richat Structure. We moved to the tragic climate collapse recorded in ancient cave art. We discovered the evolutionary missing link of walking whales, traced the violent thermal flash of asteroid glass, and finally uncovered the doomed water empires hidden beneath the dunes.
It's a lot to take in. But the unifying philosophical lesson of the Sahara is that geographical stability is an arrogant myth. The climate, the continents, and the civilizations that cling to them are merely temporary stage decorations in a much grander, indifferent planetary cycle.
We're just passing through.
Exactly. We assume our current Holocene epoch is the permanent baseline of reality, but we are just temporary guests in a constantly shifting landscape.
Which brings us to a final thought I want you to mull over. We look at the Sahara as a massive delete key, a force that grinds surface monuments into dust. But the paradox is that the desert is also the planet's most perfect preservation vault if you look deep enough underground.
That's true.
It saved the whale bones, the meteor glass, and the ancient rivers. Today, we are obsessively trying to leave a permanent mark on the surface of the Earth. We're building glass megacities and massive solar farms in our deserts. But we are fueling this surface expansion by aggressively hollowing out the deep earth, draining the ancient fossil aquifers dry.
Yeah.
Computer models show that in 15,000 years, the Earth's axis will tilt again, the rains will return, and the Sahara will bloom into a garden once more. If our thriving modern cities are swallowed by the shifting sands, destined to become mere scraps of plastic and strained glass shards, what will the next civilization think when they dig us up from beneath their green Eden?
Makes you wonder.
Will they view us as masters of technology or just another empire that failed to pay its debts to nature? Keep questioning the ground beneath your feet and always look beneath the surface.